existed until I moved to Michigan. The drink I was raised on, Jeff, was bourbon and ginger, but it was Schweppes down here.
Schweppes, and you have that Red Rock stuff, right?
Oh yeah, and then Dad found Red Rock, and it was game over from there.
No kidding. All right, I'm going to tweet this out right quick. So Sherwin, you got to keep our esteemed guest.
Oh yeah, I got to keep him activated.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
so Jeff, if you didn't see the email, that's fine. Basically, what we've got is we got about a minute and 15-second intro where we will disappear and you may not even hear us.
Okay.
So we do a read, and then we open the show when we come back live with asking you, basically, welcoming you to the show and then asking you what you're drinking. And then it doesn't matter what it is you're drinking. You don't hold any prejudices, but we will talk about what we're drinking.
Okay.
Because we feel like that's part of the personality of our show.
Sure.
And then we'll get right into probably something related to silly season. We'll have what we call a report card.
I see that, yeah.
And then we'll have a couple of questions. A lot of times the questions that come in will get pulled up into the report card, and I haven't studied the final draft.
Yeah, Sherwin sends me kind of the rough outline of people who've asked questions. I put together the whole report card thing and questions for you and stuff. I think so. Right after the sort of what we're drinking thing, Jeff just kind of talking with you a little bit and introducing everybody to you and everything. And I think you saw in there maybe some. We don't like to do interview type of stuff, but we do like folks that kind of get to know who our guest is, and I think in this case everybody will know, if not by name, by voice as soon as you start talking.
Okay.
But then yeah, we'll go into that whole report card section just with different various questions, and then some sort of off the wall stuff, and then closing it down after that. It's for us, we like to do long form stuff, so you can see the show sheet is, essentially maybe a page long
Right.
at best. But if you're digging into a story or something and you want to keep going, just keep going. Nothing against us, and we love that stuff. A lot of times we don't even get to all the questions and stuff that's on there because I'm sitting here giving Sherwin visual notices.
That's why I need
move on.
one of the many reasons why I need Rusty is for him to say, "Hey man, we're already at 90 minutes. Can you for sure shut that up?"
Yeah.
Well, you guys don't have a hard out, right?
Correct.
Not really.
You guys can go as long as you want to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
All right.
hard out. That sounds like a radio term, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Top of the hour.
We don't
We'll give
have
you
a commercial
60-second
break.
music bed.
Yeah, no commercial breaks. We don't.
So we also don't edit.
Yeah. We don't edit anything. So whatever happens, I chop off any dead silence at the beginning and end, and then upload everything in between.
Okay.
So
Sounds
if there's
good.
a 10-second pause, or if there's a faux pas, or sometimes we lose connection and we'll have to call someone back. That's very rare, but that'll all be in the show.
And we're also already visually live on YouTube, right?
Yep. We're already live on YouTube. Folks are joining in. We got Roger, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How's it going? Stacy's on, and others. Y'all be sure to join in the chat window there. Thank you for joining on. We do have Mr. The Voice of NASCAR on, and we'll get started here in one moment. Let me make sure I've got everything set up correctly. I just want to do one more sound check. I've got that.
So, Jeff, when we give you the cue that we're going to start, that's actually for the audio version that gets posted to Podbean and iTunes and wherever else. But we're actually already live on YouTube.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people that actually tune in and watch it like it's a TV show, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good.
So, we'll do all that. Like Sherwin said, we might go out for 30 seconds to a minute there. The folks will be able to hear you, so if you're typing or saying, "Hey, I can't hear you," everybody will be able to hear that.
They will be able to hear it.
Okay.
But sometimes the audio goes out on the other side. This is a total amateur deal. I've got my mixing board here, and I've probably got one wire that's connecting to the wrong thing, but I don't dare touch it because it works for everything else. You know what I mean?
I do.
All
Good.
right.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Are you ready to roll, Mr. Jeff?
I am. Let's do it.
Sherwin, you ready?
Yep.
All right. With that, we are recording now. Welcome, y'all. That's right. This is a Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 176. It's Thursday, January 3rd, 2019. I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace. I'm in the PETM podcast studio with Pregame Engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, dude?
We have started a brand new year of podcasting. We're not going to change what we're doing. We're going to keep kicking ass, and today is no
exception by any means. Sherwin, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to the PTM podcast. Y'all know what the deal is. This year, once again, is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM, join the What You Drink Club for as little as $1 a month and get your free koozie. Best part is every cent in 2019, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be donating right once again to sponsoring drivers. Go join the PTM podcast today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. That is Laura Henshaw, Aaron Bearden, Robert Keplinger, Colvin McClain, Eric Kepner, Ryan Kiefer, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brandon Crouch, Kathleen McDonald, Stacey Wright, Brandon Carl, Billy Workman, Rika Porter, Jumpy Bob, Les Miller, Tommy Witt, Julie Bosley, John Pearson, Eddie Greer III, Yunker Motorsports, Jason Rudd, David Mullins, Joe Nolf, and Patrick Johnson. Special shout out and thanks as well to Mr. Eddie Greer III, who has upped his contribution to the PTM podcast.
That's a pretty impressive crowd.
Yeah, really cool. And I may have made the announcement right there, Sherwin, that we are indeed going to be, once again, just shipping all the money off to some driver out there. So yeah. So 2019.
If we haven't said it already,
fill it up again. Yeah, I couldn't remember if we had already.
I think we did, but I don't know. Maybe we did it online, but
yeah.
I think we already said it on the last podcast.
Maybe so. That podcast has been like 2 weeks ago now, so it feels like we're greenhorns again, trying to get back into the swing of things. You know.
Yeah, well, we probably should have.
Yeah,
we should probably have old JJ on the show and let him talk a little bit. But hell, we're booked out through early February.
Yeah. So with that, Sherwin, dude, I'm super excited about this guest today. There are probably 4 to 6 races every season that I cannot watch on TV, and I'm usually driving from one place to another. And there's nothing that I like more when driving than there to be a race on, you know?
Sure.
Because you just get to sit back and enjoy the picture that they're painting for you and loving it. It makes any race go by. And me and you've listened to it coming back from a rain race before. And
frustratingly, but the content was fantastic.
Exactly. So welcoming to the show today, it gave me goosebumps every time. Like when he logs on and we were talking to him in the pre-show here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is, the voice of NASCAR announcer, play-by-play announcer for MRN. He's on Twitter at Jeff Striegele, Striegle, if I said that right. Very excited to have on the show, Mr. Jeff Striegele. Jeff, Happy New Year. What's happening?
Rusty, Sherwin, how are you guys? Happy New Year to you. That was way overblown. You didn't have to go to that extent. But you know what? I got to tell you, I am excited to be with you guys. This is the first time that we have done this together. And I appreciate the invite, and I'm looking forward to the next 60, 90, 2 hours, whatever you guys want to do. I'm jacked up and ready to go.
Well,
awesome.
If we're committed for 2 hours, we can go straight into the ditch.
We can really get in the ditch.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're known for, Jeff, is so we do this show kind of not fly by night in that we don't pay attention to what we want to talk about, because we definitely do, and we want people to be entertained. So we want people to learn, think, and laugh, and maybe not cry. I mean, we'll suspend that
that side of the emotional spectrum.
Side of the spectrum, but it's about entertainment more than it is about news.
So to start the entertainment off, Jeff, we have to ask it to every guest on the show. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, before I answer that question, I
Sir.
got to tell you, if people are tuned in to be educated with this guest on, they probably need to dial out and just catch the next one, because I don't know how much education, but we're certainly going to have fun. All right, here's the deal. Rusty Sherwin, have you ever heard of Verner's? Verner's Ginger Ale.
I had
Yes,
not prior,
Verner's, absolutely.
prior to
All right.
10 minutes ago when you told us.
I am very
I
familiar
have not.
with Verner's. I was actually cussed out by Michigan brethren when I didn't know about it when I moved to Michigan.
when you lived up there.
Yeah. If anybody is listening that knows what Verner's is, they grew up in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, obviously the Great Lakes, because once you get outside of the Great Lakes, people will look at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it is ginger ale. I'm starting with ginger ale, and then I have a Mountain Dew Code Red ready to go.
Oh, man.
If we start getting into the 45,
that's
60 minutes,
second
just
hour.
keep me up and keep me going.
That's after
All
the
right.
commercial break, second
All right,
hour.
so we're definitely going to need a pee break. It's fine. I'll need one
Right.
for sure. So Verner's, I had absolutely no clue what that stuff was until I moved to Western Michigan when I was a 23-year-old, and people were like, "Hey, man, you like Verner's and bourbon?" And I'm like, I like
the
ginger
bourbon
ale
part.
and bourbon."
I like the bourbon part. Tell me about the Verner's. I'm
Yeah,
in.
tell me the rest. But Black Velvet and Mountain Dew was the thing there.
Oh, okay. That was
like their
23-year-old
cheap
thing.
Canadian
That's what we're
whiskey.
doing.
Like, what would have been? I don't even know what the equivalent down here would have been, but
Who
some
knows? Lord
real cheap.
Calvert Canadian
Yeah.
something or other. Hey, our official sponsor, Patrick Johnson, lives up there in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So maybe he can tweet at us, let us know if he knows all about the Verner's. Anybody else in the PTM posse, let us know about the Verner's or the Schweppes or the what is it? The almost
Oh, Canada Dry.
no,
That's another big
no,
one.
the other one that your dad uses. What we were talking about that. On the pre-show.
Red Rock.
Oh, Red Rock.
Oh, yeah. Red
That's
Rock
the
ginger
spicy.
ale is the
Look
stuff, y'all.
Look out, Sherwin. What are we drinking?
We are drinking Jim Beam White Label.
Yes, sir.
With some, I've got some ginger beer. You got Coca-Cola, regular Coca-Cola this time.
Yep.
So
Little sugar.
How
little
long
caffeine.
into the show do we go before it literally just comes off the tracks?
We are. Let's see. We're 7 minutes and 34 seconds in right now, and I believe we're there.
I think
Yeah,
it happens when I text the orange cone and say, "Why haven't you given me something to close the show?" It'll happen way before that.
yeah. So, Jeff, it's the off season and New Year. Happy New Year, by the way. Did you do any crazy New Year's celebration? Do you have a tradition there?
No, I don't. I'll tell you what, my New Year's celebration has been and probably always will be the Rose Parade. I'm a football junkie. We can talk about that in a minute. I'm from Michigan. That was awful. You guys are from Georgia. That was awful.
We'll hold you there for a second.
Yeah, but we're white and gold, buddy.
As white and gold Georgia
Yeah.
Tech fans, we were, we don't mean to disparage anyone else.
White and burnt orange is pretty close to white and gold.
Yeah, there you go. But we were very pleased with the ending, or not with the ending, the
entire
beginning,
game,
middle,
as it
and end of that game. So
Nothing wrong with that. So, yeah, Rose Bowl, Rose Parade. I love watching college football. I love watching pro football. As far as anything, that's really kind of a tradition around New Year's is really just around the TV, maybe a little bit of family, some food, hors d'oeuvres, and it's just, probably like most everybody else. It's just football overload for the 2 days, if you will, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but it's everything leading up to it. And obviously we got one more big game coming up on Monday night. So I look at that as all part of a really kind of a New Year's package or week or however you want to look at it.
yes, sir.
You really did a good job at that pronunciation of the pre-meal.
What was it?
Hors d'oeuvres.
Hors d'oeuvres.
That
Okay.
because even my mother, who taught French for 35 years and loves to tell jokes, We'll say Horse Doovers.
Oh.
Or horse
Just
divorce.
for the fun of it.
Horse divorce.
I remember not the specific instance, but the feeling of the first time I read that word, and I had no idea what. Okay, well, I don't know what they're serving, but that sounds terrible, and it took me a little while to understand that's what it was.
Yeah, it
Well,
sounded
I could
like
have said meatballs, shrimp, meat and cheese, pickles, olives, chips, dips, but when you put it all together, it's hors d'oeuvres.
Perfect.
There you go.
sounds exactly
Sure.
like what our New Year's was.
Yeah. Went over to a friend's house. Friend's moving out of town here in a few months, and so it's kind of the last big hoorah over there. And what a hoorah / crazy show it was. So that was a good time. I got up too early for how I felt, and but then New Year's Day made the classic. Now, Jeff, do y'all do up in Michigan the classic New Year's I guess dinner, supper, whatever it is, with the black eyed peas and greens and ham, or is that just a Southern thing? I've heard from various dots around the country that is a thing there, or it isn't a thing. So I don't know if Grand Rapids, Michigan, if it's a thing.
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Never heard of what you just said.
Oh wow!
Ham and what?
So black eyed peas. So that's the
Well,
thing.
it's pork. You get swine, greens, and black eyed peas.
Yeah.
It's swine for intelligence, black eyed peas for luck, and greens for money. Essentially
in the new year. Yep. So it's a. I know it's a Southern tradition, but I've told people from Kentucky they had no idea what I was talking about. I've talked to people from Indiana. They're like, oh yeah, gotta have those. So it's kind of all over the place. So there you go. You're gonna have to come down south one New Year's Day and have you the
traditional
luck money
3.
and what was it you said for pork? I just like pork. I didn't know
Knowledge.
That was a thing.
It's
knowledge.
knowledge.
Okay. Oh wow. Huh. Smart pigs.
Pigs
All right,
are
if I got
smart.
my choice between that, shrimp, meatballs, meat, cheese, chips, dip, I'm going to stay here, if that's okay. I mean, it sounds great, but I'm going to leave that tradition to all you in the South. How's
Well,
that?
I don't hate you for that decision for sure, because those things sound delicious.
Well, I can't not have it on New Year's Day. So
Well,
any other
that's
day
like,
I'm in.
well, but that's like New Year's Eve food though for us, because we definitely had meatballs. We didn't have shrimp this time.
Not this time.
But cheese for sure.
Yeah,
We had a bunch of that.
Well, Jeff, let's talk about you for a little bit. Obviously, the voice of NASCAR with MRN and everything. Tell us about how you got into announcing and how you started. And I wrote this in the show notes. Maybe you saw it. Were you as garbage at radio as we were 3 years ago when we started this podcast? It's funny to go listen back to the first one.
I hope not.
I used to edit the podcast a bit. Not a bit, heavily, because we're staring at each other going, is it your turn? Is it my turn? What do we do? How do we talk? Until we got to the point, I'm not saying we're any better on content, but we're most certainly better about not making 4 seconds dead space in that time. So walk us through how you got started and got into all that.
All right, well, let's, I can take you back to the beginning, and really it was all simply by chance, and just one thing happened after another. I raced myself for probably 13 years, but we started to have a family. Cost of racing, goes up. It was like, okay, I need to get out of this. But while I was doing that, I had the opportunity to be a guest on a show. That same show needed a co-host to fill in. I mean, this is small time AM. Nobody listens to this station, but I'm nervous. I mean, it's just like all of us, the first time you ever do this. Mm-hmm. And I got invited to be the host while this guy was on vacation. That led to kind of a passion. It's like, you know what, this is kind of fun. I could kind of dig in this. So I was able to talk an AM station here in Grand Rapids into allowing me to do my own show. Did it once a week. That led to an opportunity to do live broadcasts from the Berlin Raceway here in Grand Rapids. That's our home racetrack, and I know a lot of the people that hopefully are enjoying the show are probably familiar with Berlin Raceway.
Yep.
And so I started doing that, and what I did was I was already a big fan of MRN radio. If you're going to do racing, you want to pattern yourself after what you believe to be the best. And I thought MRN was by far the best thing I'd ever heard. I mean, I'm a huge fan. And so we did our broadcast, and the guy that was my co-anchor said, you ought to just send in an audition tape. What would it hurt? Maybe they'd give you a shot. So 24 years ago, I sent an audition tape in. David Hyatt, the president of MRN at the time, said, you know what? You guys do what we do, only you're doing it on a short track level. So come down and audition at Daytona. I did that, and lo and behold, I got a job. They called me back and said, we'd like to have you do a handful of what we call standalone events when the trucks are by themselves or Xfinity is by themselves, or it's a standalone event. And I got a shot to do turn 4 for the truck race at the Texas Motor Speedway. I called the trucks cars all day long. I'm sure that I called the wrong drivers in the trucks all day long, and I literally felt when the thing was all said and done that they would never have me back. But they did, and that's kind of the short, condensed version. It really was just an opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and fortunately for me, one opportunity led to an open door, and I was able to step through it, and here I am today. I feel very blessed to be a part of what I consider to be one of the best broadcast teams in all of sports, not just auto racing, but when you take a look at the talent lineup that surrounds all of us, whether we're talking Mike Bagley or Dave Moody, Winston Kelly, Alex Hayden, Steve Post, Kim Kuhn. Everybody knows these people's names, and for good reason, because they're all very talented people.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that you raced for, 13 years? What were you racing?
Well, they're called, and here's another thing, that is Great Lakes oriented. It was an open wheel car. They're called NAMRA Formula Indies. Basically, it was a short track, small version of an Indy car. But we would run Berlin, we'd run Sandusky, South Bend, we'd run Indianapolis Speedrome. So we chased around to, 3, 4, 5 different states. I think I was probably one of only maybe a handful of drivers out of the Michigan area, but I loved it. It was a passion, and it was one of those things that I think that we all can recognize from the day that your mom and dad or your grandpa, whoever it was, took you to a short track and you fell in love. And I remember that day sitting in the grandstands with my dad going, all right, if we're ever going to race, this looks like what I want to race. It looks like it's affordable. And it took us about a year, I guess, to put the whole thing together. And bought ourselves a race car and thought we were a race team, and we were awful. And it took us a long time to become good. And, we lived out a dream and a fantasy of being, on the road and having a race car and a trailer and going from town to town and racetrack to racetrack. But it had to end at some point. The kids were getting older and I needed to spend time with them. So I had to do other things.
Man, that's cool. That sounds awesome.
What do you know? Sorry, I'm just kicked over stuff here in the studio. Jeff, what do you know about the college level Formula SAE open wheel racing program, and was that similar to what you were doing, or is there a major difference there? Do you know about what the Formula SAE is?
Yeah, I do. If you were to think of a formula, I believe they refer to it as a Formula 5000. Down with you guys, with Road Atlanta. Mm-hmm. They will run that Formula 5000, I believe. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about there? It looks very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what a Formula 5000 is. I have heard of it.
Okay.
Like, from my perspective personally, is having worked in the shop with Georgia Tech's Formula SAE, GT Motorsports. I worked for GT Off-Road, helping them build an off-road car, but I was watching, Formula GT SAE build their car, and it was amazingly cool. I wasn't totally immersed in motorsports the way I am now. But at the time, I was trying to figure it out. So it was basically, it looks like a small Indy car, and at that time, it had a 600cc Kawasaki motorcycle motor in it.
There you go. There you go. Same wheelbase as a midget that we're familiar with today. The difference that we have between what you were building and what we were racing is we were running a full roll cage. These cars flew just absolutely as quick as any car on any given track. We would run, you guys are familiar with winged pavement sprint cars, with super modifieds. Our times on tracks were equal to that. And quicker than super lates and outlaw late models and what have you. In fact, that was actually became a bit of a demise for our organization because we were going so fast. The true story, the guy that ran the South Bend Motor Speedway at the time walked up to us after we qualified in a 9-second bracket on their quarter-mile racetrack and said, guys, unless you slow these cars down, I'm not having you back. You're too fast. Someone's going to get hurt. And we did hurt a few people. We had a couple of fatalities in our organization, and it was just something that, everybody wanted to do, but we just, like everything in motorsports, you just keep wanting to go faster and faster and faster. And the problem with that is they become more dangerous. The tracks are looking at it, and they're going, you know what, we just can't do this. So I think I got out of it at the right time. The organization stayed together for maybe 4 or 5 years before it kind of fell apart. And when I got out of that, I ended up doing a little bit of PA work, actually, before I got into the full-blown radio. And I just kind of fell in love with the opportunity to talk and have people respond. When you're doing PA, and I know you guys have done it in some fashion or another, there's nothing cooler than being a PA announcer when you actually say something and you can hear an immediate response from the crowd, good, bad, or otherwise. And that kind of led to the radio, and here we are today.
Well, that type of racing sounds thrilling. Like, it sounds like what a rush. Especially probably the first restart, or the green flag, and bringing that thing up to that kind of speed in that kind of small quarters. Holy mackerel! That would be that sounds like a ton of fun. But as you said, probably super dangerous. Everything that's going on. One thing, Jeff, that I've thought of many times as I'm listening to MRN and listening to a race go on. Is I kind of laugh to myself, and I think, and this is not to disparage any announcers of any sport, because they all know so much more. They're all professors of the sport, and they have this background and everything and know all this stuff. However, I will say that if I'm listening to baseball on the radio, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm probably a month of practice from being able to do this. Here comes Rusty up to bat. He's 0-2 on the day. He's 2 strikeouts. Andrew Sherwin's up to
batting .272 on the season.
And here comes that first pitch. It's a fly ball to center field. That's going to take care of the side, and we've got the top of the order. Top of the order coming up. Yeah, just a bit outside kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, boy, with just a little bit of practice, maybe I could do that type of thing. Again, not to disparage those guys, because they know way more about baseball, and I would never do that. But the announcing part to me sounds doable. What you do on a weekly basis over the radio sounds impossible to me. And maybe it's the pace of the sport and everything else. Allmendinger coming out of one with Joey Logano on his tail, 3 wide behind him. And I just made that up on the spot, but that's it. I just exhausted what I can even do.
And not only that, but having to pass it to the next guy. So, like, there's, you've got 14 different teammates, 3 guys in the pits. You've got all the turns covered. And I have listened to you guys talk about how you deliberately pause that allows the person in turn 1 or 2 to pick up what's happening. Like you talked about Dave Moody. Obviously, Moody has got a voice. You have a voice. Barney Hall had a voice. He was like sort of the commander-in-chief in a lot of ways. But
so
I'll let you speak.
No, point of all that for me is Is that something that has taken a lot of practice and a lot of stuff? Is that something innate that you've been able to do for a long time? I said at the top of the show, painting that picture for everybody who's listening that gives me this kind of clear idea of what's going on. And I'll tell you what, I love listening to you while we're at the racetrack. We went to however many races, 8 races this past year, Sherwin.
Yeah, we kicked some ass.
yeah. For 2 dudes who are not involved in the sport at all, other than talking on this little podcast deal. But listening at the racetrack, I feel like I pick up a whole lot more just listening to the guys who know what they're looking at, even though we've been fans for so long. So I don't know what my question was. Other than I just wanted to commend on that. But, I guess my question was more, is that something that has come over practice, over time? How have you been able to develop that? And what do you do maybe to stay, current in all that?
Well, it's going to sound crazy, but again, I'm going to take you back to Berlin. And I know, again, I get it. It sounds crazy, but half-mile racetrack, guy in the booth with me, 2 guys on pit road. Let's try to do this the way, just like you were talking about, like we hear it when we're driving up and down the road and listening to then Barney Hall and Eli Gold or Alan Bestwick. I mean, the biggest names. I mean, these are guys that I just grew up with and fell in love with and couldn't change the channel. So obviously the idea of trying to emulate what I was hearing there was being done long before I ever actually got the opportunity to go to work for them. And people ask us all the time, is there a light that goes off when you're supposed to talk? No, there's no lights. Is there a producer in your ear saying, Moody, go? No, there's no producer in anybody's ear. All of our microphones, and when we get to Daytona, we'll have 3 guys in the booth, 3 guys in the turns, and 4 people on pit road. So what is that, 11 people off the top of my head, whatever it is. Everybody's microphone is live. Everybody's microphone is hot. All they got to do is crack it, and they can talk. So to your point, when we bring them down the front straightaway, Logano and his teammate Brad Keselowski side by side as they hit the banking in turn 1. Dave Moody knows roughly when I'm going to drop it. He also knows the voice inflection that he's listening for as to how I'm going to wrap it up. And if you listen, I mean, we try to make it so that there isn't a quarter of a second between the time I drop it and the time he picks it up. And rarely will Dave or Mike or anybody else actually step on me or whoever happens to be in front of them. So the bottom line is Dave Moody's picked it up. He's going to carry them all the way through the banking of turns 1 and 2. As they exit off turn number 2, out onto the super stretch, it continues to be side by side for the lead, and Mike Bagley picks it up right there. Bang, he knows. And he'll carry them all the way down the back straightaway, carry them up into the banking in turn number 3. They continue to run side by side. Now here comes Truex, going to make it 3 wide for the lead, and Kurt Becker's going to go. Bang. And he'll carry them all the way off turn number 4, and we'll pick them back up as they work through the tri-oval. The one thing that we can do now, we've been doing this for maybe 5 or 6 years, and some of the old folks that are listening to and watching the program tonight will remember a time, maybe you guys do, when you would hear a microphone pop open, and you would hear something like, did somebody just crack a microphone? Well, back in the day, that used to be how our pit road guys would indicate to the booth people that they had a story because we couldn't communicate. Sure. So if you heard the microphone crack, it'd only be for a second. We would say, that battle for the lead continues in turn number 1, but right now let's go to pit road. Wouldn't say a name because we didn't know who cracked the microphone. Yeah. And Winston Kelly might pop in and go, guys, to our producer who's standing right behind us and say, without anybody hearing it, hey, I got a story on Jimmy Johnson. That car may be overheating. I'm getting an update on it now, and if you want to come down to me when the timing is right, I can fill you in. So now that's been given to me, and I can say Logano leads Truex, Kevin Harvick. Further back, Jimmy Johnson's running 15th. And Winston Kelly, is there a problem with that car? And boom, he can take it from there.
I'm laughing because it's so cool.
It's so cool, and so I in order to prepare for this show, Jeff, I went back and listened to when you were on lap traffic because Brandon's a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
And you said some similar things there, kind of coaching him through what it's like to do radio. And that's so neat. Like the amount of preparation. Also, I'll take Kim Kuhn's phone number whenever you can provide it.
I'll be sure to give it to you off air.
Yeah, absolutely off air. But
So,
no,
555.
all of that is so cool. Like, because we don't, as much as we try to prepare ourselves, just in the interest of having a fun show and doing the best job we can, and treating it like it's a radio show, in that we don't edit. So this is all going to be published. We're not going to cut anything out of this. It is so cool to hear somebody who is a professional describe how they let the show go and let other people that they work with pick it up, and then how they pick it back up themselves. So, Rusty, it's easy for us because we can make eye contact. We're sitting 3 feet away from each other.
Yeah.
He can point at me and go, hey, or wave his hands or whatever, or I can point at him and say, I got something. And he'd be like, okay, I'll let you go as soon as the guest pauses. But
And all this, by the way, well, it's 140 decibels around you. You gotta. Hey, did I pick up on that right? Oh, it's my turn. Here we go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, because because I'm a nerd, I'll sit there and I'll try to practice it as I'm watching the race if I'm at the track and I'm not keyed in on the mic and nobody can hear me because it's so loud. So I'm trying to call the race myself, doing a terrible job at it. But then something happens, I go, oh, holy crap, look at that. and I go, how do these guys contain themselves when there's a holy crap, look at that moment?
When monkeys throw crap into the fan?
yeah, or a big wreck or whatever it is. Have you had a holy crap, look at that moment, Jeff?
I have had moments where I absolutely didn't know what to say. Where, and I can tell you exactly where it was. It was off 4 at Daytona when the cars were going away from me. And if you remember, and I can't tell you exactly what the date was, but Gordon was involved. And he was about the only car that I could see. The hardest thing to do in radio is call the cars when they're going away from you. When they're coming at you, no problem. When they're in front of you, of course, no issue, but they're only in front of you for a matter of a second. But at Daytona, some of the folks might know of the Sunoco sign just off turn number 4. Well, that's where you stand if you're calling the race in turn number 4, but you have to carry them back maybe towards the entrance of pit road. That's, I don't know, maybe 300-400 yards. And so they wrecked coming off turn number 4, but it was past me. So all I can do, I crack my microphone, trouble, turn 4, and all I see is smoke. And I can't even pick out a car. So I don't even know what it is I'm going to say, and yet I realize that this is the Daytona 500. I've got people that are listening. They want to know what's going on, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, I can't see anything other than Gordon's car, and it looked like it flipped. I don't think it did. So that the call was bad. The call was inaccurate. All I'm doing in my head is saying, Jeff, let go of the button. Just stop talking. And somebody else will pick it up, and you can, by that point, I might be able to see something off the big screen in the infield, or at least I can see who's involved. But it's one of those deals, and we'll all say it, when we start going down a bad path, the longer you hold the microphone button down and keep talking, the worse it's going to get. And it's like, just let go now, because this is only going to get worse. But we've all had those moments.
I've heard, obviously I've heard plenty of people have issues or talk poorly about announcers and stuff, mostly on TV. I've never heard anything on radio, but some of the TV announcers, I've heard different criticisms and whatnot, and and there'll be a whole race, 3.5-hour race, and they'll say something that's wrong in hour 1 minute 32 second 54, and somebody tweets out, oh, what an idiot, he said blah blah blah. Yep. And I might have been on that idiot train 4 years ago, where I'm like, I can't believe you just said something that stupid. After you do like a radio show, podcast, whatever it is, for a little while, you know what? I'm happy that I get 30% of things either right or not look like an idiot. So to have that level of accuracy is incredible to me.
Well, so to add to that, I would say it's so interesting to watch a super speedway race. Wow, now I'm Elmer Fudd. Like at Talladega, for instance, and compare it to Bristol, where you have essentially the same window of mistake because of how fast the cars are going. They wrecked out of turn 4. Blah, blah, 35 cars wrecked before they even got the start finish. At Bristol, it's usually less cars, but it happens at the same pace.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, when you call those races, what's the difference for you? I guess Bristol, it's easier to see the whole course, obviously.
It is. That's an interesting question, and I can answer it this way because there are times when Joe Moore and I might look at each other and go, we got to slow this pace down. Because, as you guys know, let's use Daytona or Talladega as an example. 2 wide, 3 wide, 4 wide, 9 rows deep. And there is some shuffling, not always at the front of the field. Let's say Keselowski's out front. He's just trying to block from the bottom to the top. But behind him, it's just chaotic.
Right.
Well, the fan driving down the road doesn't want to hear the last call, the last lap of the Daytona 500 for 3.5 hours in their ear. You know what I mean by that?
Yes,
and some people
absolutely.
Do it. Here they come again, lap 5. All right, you know what? Back it down a little bit. Get off the edge. And so, but you find yourself, because we're fans, going, holy cow, man, this is amazing. And you want to start yelling and you want to start screaming. And then we might look at each other and go, you know what, we need to slow the pace down here, even if we're at Martinsville. And they're just ripping off laps and bumper to bumper and running into each other. And at Daytona, when they're 5 wide coming through the tri-oval, it's like, okay, take a breath. Let's reset it.
Tone it complete down.
Yeah, because they're not going anywhere. They're going to be back around here again, so let's slow it down, bring it back down, and hopefully give the listener a bit of a break and not always be on the chip.
This
makes perfect sense.
This is so much fun to talk about. When you're sitting here talking about your passions, which for me and Sherwin, one of those is sitting here doing this podcast.
Both love to have a chance to do a mock call.
This would last the next 4 hours if we continue talking about how to call a race and everything, and maybe we do a 4 hours. No, we're not going to.
Maybe we can ask Latimer Speedway if they have an empty booth that we can just do a mock call in.
That would be hilariously bad. Just do 5 laps or something. Oh my God!
Right, to clip it for a podcast for a goof.
Yeah. Have you ever caught yourself about to cuss and didn't?
No, I haven't. That is something that I'll tell you. We talk about that periodically. I don't know how well you know my wonderful analyst, our wonderful analyst, guy by the name of Rusty Wallace. And I'll tell you what, you want to hear colorful language, spend time with Rusty. But what is so amazing is that he can be colorful off the air, and yet not ever once has he made a mistake on the air. And I look at him from time to time. I'm like, dude, it's going to happen. And he just looks at me. He's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, well, all right. But if I'm a betting man, I know where I'm putting my money. I haven't. It's fearful. Of course, you never obviously want to slip and say something that you would regret. Or that would be, obviously you don't want to drop profanity on the air and go, oh my God, well, there was the last lap that I'm ever going to do for the Motor Racing Network, so I'll just punch out now. I'll say I haven't been close, but I've probably been closer than I realize.
Gotcha.
So here's the funny thing that's about, the new FCC world with all the cable television and the internet television and everything else. one of the things that's been happening in other professional sports is they've kind of stopped caring that happens. Like, they're like, we want to put a mic next to the field because we want to get the sounds, and somebody just F-bomb. Like, it's not faint. It's very clear. And they just go, oh, sorry about that. Do you think AM radio may ever find themselves into that space and go, hey, we're all adults here for the most part, and you can teach your kids what they should and shouldn't say?
I'm not a fan of that. I never have been. I don't know what you guys, I'd be interested to know what you guys would think about that. I don't want, we are a sport, you guys know this. When Kyle Busch is for, all of a sudden my sound just went a little bit wacky, but I think I'm good now.
You're good?
When Kyle Busch is led for 2.5 hours, he's in position to win a race. Somehow, some way, he ends up in the fence, and he's out of the race. We've got a microphone in front of him, so does TV, in a matter of 4 or 5 or 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we expect him to conduct himself in this most perfect and professional manner. Well, he's not going to. We're the only sport out there that I know of where we have that kind of access to an athlete that has just had a bad moment.
Yep.
And I don't like it. I don't like it. Let's put it this way. I love it right up until that individual, I'm going to take Kyle out of the equation, so we're going to say that driver doesn't say what we think he should have said.
So you're talking about Kurt now? No, I'm just
or Tony, or
anybody, right? No. And I'm a fan of having young people at the racetrack. At whatever age we can get a young kid there, whether it's a young lady or a young man, a family there, I want them there. We need those people there. And I want us to be able to conduct ourselves in the best light we can. How's that?
Yeah. Well, so
I love the emotion, but at some point, I don't mind the beep button rather than somebody coming on and laughing, going, "Oh, well, sorry about that." Too bad you heard that. That's my opinion.
We're on this show, as hopefully you've seen in the last 40 minutes, we try to be as clean as we can and have kids around and kids whose parents will if we kind of slip up and let something small out, they'll at least have the context there.
Right.
But I think
it took me 175 episodes, Jeff, to say the F word. And somehow I said it twice in the same episode.
Oh yeah, and I didn't believe it.
but that's not what we're about.
Again.
Yeah. We just we want to be the same thing, not necessarily the same thing you guys are on AM radio, but we do want to be. We want to be
accessible,
a wide, accessible, a wide audience program.
Right. So. Let's talk NASCAR a little bit about what's going on and stuff. I'm just going to bring up a few of these just sort of random topics, see how things are, or see where we're at on some of the things that I thought were cool questions that came through. Mick Rose at GoDucks42_Mick, he says, looking at teams' current driver lineups in 5 years from now, will Penske have the best team of drivers? And that's a tough question for me. 5 years that's a long deal. I mean, think about where we were 5 years ago. I think you picked
too long of a time period.
If you put 2 years or maybe at most 3 years, I mean, you've got 2 champions now. You've got Ryan Blaney, who he's got a lot of potential.
So Blaney will be 27, Joey will be 31, and Brad will be 37.
And we got Cindric, Menard. I think that's kind of your there's an obvious A level, B level, B minus level, maybe C level.
Menard will be in his 40s in 5 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, Menard might not be with the team in 5 years. So 5 years is a long way.
Of course, he's Wood Brothers. So
Let's talk about the next couple to 3 years. Is that potentially our strongest team? I think that's a great question. And as soon as I saw the question, I went, no. And then I went, well, let's look. Shoot. Maybe. That's
Brad and Joey.
Stout. That's kind of like the LeBron thing. Anywhere LeBron goes, is that the best team now? But they've got 2 champions there, and I think with Ryan Blaney as a very formidable teammate, I think that's absolutely great, and then they can develop with the others. Jeff, where are you at on that?
Well, when you changed it up on me, going from 5 to 2 to 3, that kind of, like you guys just said, that just shuffles the deck every time you do that. I like this question, but I think the deal there is that you really got to make an awful lot of assumptions at that point when you talk, when you're going to talk 5 years out. Because we don't know what Kevin Harvick is going to be doing in 5 years. I don't think we know what Denny Hamlin, Truex, I'm just kind of thinking off the top of my head, where are these guys going to be? Jimmy Johnson, I would imagine he would be done at that point, but I don't know. So if we start there at 5 years, yes, I do think that they would be but I'm going to throw another caveat. Not only are they may or may not still be in the sport, we don't have any idea what team they're going to be with. Sure. Are we 100% confident that Ryan Blaney is going to be with Team Penske in 5 years? We can assume that he will be, but we don't know that for sure. Nope. And I think when you go 5 years out, I kind of like Hendrick. I don't know. Let's make an assumption here that Jimmy is not with the team. Even if he's not, you're looking at William Byron, Alex Bowman, and Chase Elliott with 5 more years of experience under their belt. That's going to be pretty formidable right there. And the wild card would be, is Jimmy in or is Jimmy not driving? And if that's the case, who do they bring in to replace him? Joe Gibbs, they align pretty well too. You got to believe that Kyle's still going to be racing. Denny, you put 5 more years under Eric Jones, and we don't know about what Truex is going to do. So 5 years out, hard to say. I'll turn the question around and put it right back on you guys. Even if we go 2 or 3 years out, when you look at what Stuart Haas has and what Rick Hendrick has and what Joe Gibbs, Ganassi is going to be good if the team is good. We already know that Kyle Larson is a champion in the making or even in the waiting. We know that Kurt's going to be good. I love the lineup that we have right now. Across the board, there is so much talent with these top-tier teams that I just don't know that you can go – I don't know that you can go a half a season out and predict, let alone go 3 years or 5 years out and predict who's going to be best.
I like the way you said that, because I think you're right. Knowing that most NASCAR contracts are in the 3-year range typically, and those are sponsor relationship type contracts, and we have so many people that you can talk about that are exciting, to your point, and we know that. We're probably going to lose guys like Kevin Harvick and Jimmy Johnson in the next 3 years. We're not going to probably get to 5 years with those guys. But we have all these other guys coming up. And so, I don't – man, to twist this around and turn the question upside down and say, like, how can you not get excited about what's going on in NASCAR right now, especially at the Cup level?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many guys that are, like, poised for success.
Yeah, and that's why I changed the question mid-sentence. I was reading the question, and then I went, no, 5 years is too much. Think about, and Jeff, you said Martin Truex Jr., but think about Furniture Row, and 5 years ago, what's the future of Furniture Row? I don't know. They're, just a back marker starting part team.
They had hired Kurt Busch away from
2 years ago. Well, they're a number one. They're the elite team, and then 3 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was, they're no longer going to exist. Like that's how quickly and how sharp our peaks and valleys are. That 5 years, it's like a who knows. But so my point being that over the next 2-3 years, I think Penske has a good shot. I think the biggest competitor, whatever you'll call it, SHR. Everything they do seems to be a good move to me. So I would look there if we're
I think we're going to
comparing.
get to this. Are we going to talk about the Mustang later in the show?
We'll talk about it now. Just do it.
Yeah, so why don't we just segue right into that? And that's going to be a big determinant on whether Penske and or SHR are going to be big parts of what happens in 2019. Is this Mustang going to work? We assumed the Camaro was going to work, and Hendrick proved that, boy, was it tough to manage.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeff, what do you think? Have you heard anything that would matter about the Mustang? Is Ford going to be set back? Or are they going to be poised for success?
Well, let's go here. When Toyota rolled out the Camry, they struggled. We go back, that was 2 years ago?
Yep.
And it took Joe Gibbs Racing, some of those guys almost went a full year before they got a win. And then all of a sudden they figured it out and they rocketed back to the top. You guys just made a great point. Last year we rolled out the Chevrolet Camaro. It took, other than Austin Dillon winning the Daytona 500, wasn't it Chase Elliott that got the win for Chevrolet? It took us all the way to Watkins Glen before Chevrolet went to victory lane, other than
August.
the Daytona 500. All right, so now we're going to roll out the new Ford Mustang. And here's the thing that I have heard. I have heard that the Mustang is not only rock solid and ready to go, but it is really, really, really ready to go. That they have done the aero testing on the Mustang, and it's actually, as it stands today, I've actually heard head and shoulders above the Chevrolet Camaro and better than the Toyota Camry. To the point where there's actually been, I think, I'll just use the word, there's been some concern, maybe among the manufacturers, that this Ford Mustang is better, not by a little, but by a lot more than a little, and it has Toyota and it has Chevrolet concerned. So now that is the body, and I know we're going to get to the rules here coming up in a few minutes, but when we just talk about parity, the Ford body, the Camaro, and the Camry, I think from everything that I've been told, Ford is very, very happy right now, and they are ready to get that car on the racetrack.
Yeah, absolutely. That's. I'm speakable.
It's interesting.
I'm speechless.
It's
That's
neat.
so cool.
It's neat as hell.
That's so cool.
That's
new
you want
information.
them. That's what you want.
Yeah,
you want a new body style to scare the absolute hell out of the other teams.
That's why I'm speechless.
Make them react.
So cool. Yeah.
But to Jeff's point, the wind tunnel is, you may be firing smoke at 50 to 100 miles an hour. You're not firing at 200 miles an hour. And you don't know what that car is going to do around 40 other cars running the same speed.
I'm excited to see it. Let's move on. We'll talk about last year and let's talk about this year. And I think we'll start with last year. And for you, Jeff, I'm very curious to hear what Jeff's got to say about this. We'll give him a second to think about it. But the best moment in NASCAR for you in 2018, like the pinnacle moment. Sherwin, I think I know probably where you're going to go with this one. Why don't you go ahead and spill it? I'll do mine, and then we'll go to Jeff.
You really think I need a moment? I'll let you guys go, but I don't need any time at all for this one. I think we're all going to land on the exact same moment.
Wow.
But go right ahead. Lead the way.
No. Well, in that case, Jeff, let's let you start so we don't steal any thunder, and we can pull different ones.
Well, I think you got to look at lap 499 at that little track called Martinsville that changed the complexion of what we saw at Ford Championship weekend. We may not have seen Logano as a champion had he not made the move that he did at Martinsville Speedway on Truex. So I think when you say what was the move of the year, and again, let's make sure we preface this, whether you like it or not, the move of the year was Logano roughing up Truex to get the victory.
I love that from your perspective because we always call ourselves a fan podcast. being and we're fans of various drivers, and so I totally 100% agree. Best NASCAR moment and most pivotal NASCAR moment in 2018. But I'm not sure that exactly aligns with me and Sherwin's best moment. Sherwin, what's your best moment in 2018?
Well, so I think in terms of what was good for NASCAR, in terms of driving conversation, I think Jeff's 100%.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No doubt about that.
Obviously, people were pissed. Some people were really happy. Sliced bread wins a championship almost exclusively because he makes that move and finishes. But I want to talk about two things.
Yep.
I want to talk about how Martin Truex lost his mind and still could have beat him to the line if he hadn't dumped the throttle.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to do that. He just lost his mind and dumped the throttle and still almost beat Joey to the line. The second thing I would say is I cried when Chase won at Watkins Glen.
That's where I figured you were going to go with the Chase win.
Because I'm a fan first.
Right,
I'm a fan first.
Y'all,
Yeah.
I am going way back. I'm going back to the first race of the season. Y'all can see the shirt, hopefully. That
Bubba!
My smoking hot wife got me for
Bubba!
Christmas, if I'm using the vernacular of NASCAR.
Finishing second at the Daytona
Not
500.
just finishing second, but when his mama came up and I love you, baby, and all that, and the tears, dude. I was listen. Here's the thing: I'm not an emotional guy. I'm pretty much like my high on a -5 to 5 scale is like a 2, and my low is like a
0.
0. I was going to say 0. So like the most depressed I've ever been is a 0 on the -5 to 5 scale, and the happiest I've ever been is like a 2. That was a 2.5. Like
Yeah.
I was in tears myself, and that moment for me really. It's a shame that it had to be the first race of the season that I get my biggest emotional output of this season, but I was that's it for me. So, and I got this awesome Bubba shirt now.
Hell yeah.
yeah. It's the long sleeve. It's got the little like
The
fake pocket
zipper
thing. I don't
thingy.
even know what this is for. There's nothing that can fit in here. Maybe
Well, it's supposed to be for people that are like athletic that put their phone in there.
but
and
the
then,
phone
like,
don't even fit. Not even the
I
old
know,
phone.
It's
I even
like
tried.
It's too old.
Like I don't even know how to.
It doesn't go in there
can't even-
anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But
You couldn't
I
even
love this
fit
shirt.
an iPhone 4 in that thing.
Right. Doesn't matter. This shirt rules. Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
That's all right. No, it's all good.
So we talked about last year. Let's talk about next year. Biggest storylines in 2019 that you're looking forward to. Jeff, what's 2019 got you either excited or pissed off or, the number one thing that you're looking forward to seeing what plays out?
Well, I think you have to start with the rules package. There's a number of stories that I can't wait to get to Daytona and start to unpack and look into. But and unfortunately, the one thing that we won't be able to look into is that new rules package when we get to Daytona. We know the cars are going to be the same there for the 500. They won't be the same there when we go back in July or go to Talladega. Let's skip all that, not even focus on that. But when we roll off, guys, to your home track down there in Atlanta and then move on and hit the West Coast swing, we are 200 horsepower reduced. We're carrying an 8-inch spoiler. We're going to slow these cars down, a lot on a clock. And you know what? I want to put my comment out on this. I've heard a lot of race fans complaining about the fact that, you're going to slow these cars down. It's going to be awful, blah, blah, blah. I got news for you. Come and sit at the racetrack, get in the stands at Richmond or at Michigan or California or Atlanta, and you tell me whether you can visually see that the cars are running 10 or 15 miles an hour slower than what they were there the year before, because you can't. And I don't expect that anybody is going to be able to truly sit there and go, the cars are running slower. But, Rusty, let's look at it this way. If we slow the cars down, in my opinion, it's going to make for better racing. I've heard, and you've heard, the drivers, push back a little bit. You've heard some fans push back a little bit. But we need a better product on the racetrack. I think everybody listening and watching this is going to have to agree with. We had great racing last year, great racing, but it's got to get better. If we're going to continue to put butts in the stands and increase the ratings on TV and radio, we've got to have a better product on the track. I think this is a step towards it. I don't know if this is the end-all, cure-all, but I'm excited to see it. That, to me, is the biggest story coming into 2019. My hope is, guys, that it will only last a matter of 4 or 5 races that we're talking about the rules package, and then that will disappear, and we'll be talking about the great racing that we're seeing week in and week out, regardless of what track we're running on.
I agree with you in a lot there, and there's one thing I may have a counter argument for. Number one, sure. I think, yes, that is the number one story of 2019, what that's going to look like. Number two, I think we're hopefully going to be talking about it and then stop talking about it soon afterwards. Yeah. I like that. And I forget what number 3 was, but the point is, of all that, the counterpoint that I have was, the third point I actually agreed with was 2018 was great racing. Me and Sherwin have said this multiple times, that 2018, and we've been fans, don't make fun of us.
Great season.
Too much, but we've been fans since 2004. So, we're coming up on age with that. That's 14 years. That's decent now, 15 years. Yep. But we're not fans since 1976 or anything. We weren't born then, but it was so. But where I kind of offer a counterpoint is, I thought 2018, of the 14 or 15 years that we've been watching, was the best racing that I've ever seen. This is the best product that I've ever seen, and I was a bit disappointed in that they came up with a rules package that is so totally different.
All-Star Race sucked.
Well, not just All-Star Race, but all the race. Putting this rules package in, I felt like if we do a couple more years of 2018, we're going to see more butts in the stands. But hey, I'm not the guy. I'm not the one making those decisions and stuff. So whatever it is, it is. But I really like that racing so much, Jeff.
Well, I agree with everything you just said there. Here's the way I look at a lot of things when it comes to NASCAR. I can complain about it, or I can embrace it. Now, you guys, Sherwin, I think you were the one in the background that said, the All-Star sucked or whatever.
Yeah, that was me.
All right, here's my thought on that. I don't know that I disagree with you at all. We saw close, quote-unquote, racing because we put the caution flag out every 20 laps. We put the caution flag out every 20 laps at Michigan, we're going to have good racing. It's not realistic. If that race goes green, what did we run there, 75 laps or whatever it was? If we would have ran 75 laps like we normally run at any other given racetrack and let the caution come out only when it's necessary, Kevin Harvick runs away from that field just like he did at other races. So I thought it was premature to just suddenly go, hey, man, we saw great racing at the All-Star race. They were all bunched up other than Kevin Harvick. They were all bunched up because the caution flag came out every 20 laps. Mm-hmm. What's it going to look like when we're at Michigan, at California, and the caution flag isn't coming out every 20 laps? The thing that I'm looking forward to, though, and here's my concern, and I think this is a great debate, and maybe it's something that we can talk about on another program, but, when you think about Michigan, which if I threw out the trivia question, what is the fastest track in all of NASCAR, 80% of the time, they don't get the fact that it's Michigan. 204.6
only in the last 3 years.
What's that?
Only in the last 3 years.
Correct, and that's my point. When they repaved it, they turned it into a wicked fast racetrack that went from a multi-groove racetrack to a single-groove racetrack.
Yep.
Same thing when you see the Indy cars run at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They're running 230 miles at Indy. They're running 205 at Michigan. And so here's the deal. When you're going that fast on a razor's edge, single line around the racetrack, how are we going to pass? Even if I can catch you, I can't get by you. And if you make one little mistake, you're out of the groove. The racing is Not good.
Yeah.
My thought is you slow those cars down 15 miles an hour, and I no longer need that one single groove. I can run the bottom, I can run the top, I can run the middle. I can't do that when those cars are going that fast on a razor's edge. That's my hope.
Yeah.
That we see. Time
Yeah.
will tell.
So,
Time will tell.
and my concern is, are we doing that by getting to terminal velocity, or are we doing that by limiting what the car's capability is from a mechanical perspective? Because
Right.
if we're doing it by limiting what the car's power is, and you just mat it and run around, we're not going to get what we want. And that's what I'm concerned about this new package with Cup, is that we're going to get cars closer together because we're going to reach terminal velocity so much easier with only 600 or 575 horsepower or whatever it is.
If I could run back like 10,000 texts that me and Sherwin send back to each other, you would see that the early Michigan race, I had texted to Sherwin, I said, this is the first time I felt like I can tell that the cars are going so much faster. It's crazy on TV that you can actually see that they're going faster this particular time.
And that was probably the race where everybody hit the wall because they blew a right front tire.
It probably was, yeah.
And we don't want that, because we want safety and we want Goodyear to have a good reputation. But what I don't understand is the answer to getting cars closer together and having them more options for racing grooves is not to slow down the motor's capability. In my opinion, it's some combination of, this is what the horsepower package is, this is what the downforce package is, and this is what the tire package is. And it's all three.
Yeah,
it's not,
I agree.
let's cap the motor and then we'll just run a restrictor plate race at Michigan.
Sherwin, what's your biggest storyline of 2019 that you're going to follow that's not the rules package, just to give some diversity here to the question?
Oh, in terms
Jeopardy.
of like...
No, I mean, what's your biggest storylines that you're looking forward to?
Oh, my biggest storyline is either Chase or Ryan Blaney going to just jump off the page?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they really going to solidify themselves as NASCAR's next, as young guys that are in their mid-20s that really could drive some interest in the sport? We already know what Chase's interest is. Like, he's doing it. And Ryan is right there. Like, he's right behind him. Can the two of them together, driving for different auto manufacturers, can they lift the sport on their own by winning races?
That's a great question.
Can I add to that?
Please.
If you're going to go there, if you're going to go there, why stop there? Why not add Kyle Larson to that mix?
That's fair. That's absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm. We keep Kyle Larson is 24, 25 years old.
Yes, he is. He's only 25.
At some point, doesn't he have to start winning on a regular basis? We waited 3 years, 2.5, for Chase Elliott to win race number 1. Now, granted, Larson's already got win number 1, 2, 3, and 4. But at what point does Kyle Larson win like Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch? At what point does Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, to your point, jump off the page and go, guys, guess what? We are not only are we here, we are championship caliber drivers week in and week out. I just think you got to add Kyle Larson to that mix.
Yes, and that is why Chip Ganassi hired Kurt Busch.
So
yeah,
for me,
to teach him about cars.
For me, 2019 is the biggest thing I'm following, and I think Mick Rose kind of gave us this with his question about Penske and the teams and stuff, and we talked so much about that. The big storyline for me is the teams. We just heard from Roush, I think today even, they're announcing they're not fielding any Xfinity team this year. They're going to focus on their 2 Cup teams. I don't know if that's this is kind of swan song stuff. We're still on this downhill slide. This is our next stop off till the rest of the downhill, or if this is a rebuilding year. In college football, hey, rebuilding year. We got a new coach. We got a new blah blah Georgia Tech.
Yeah, we're fighting on that.
Yeah. So I think the team dynamics are going to be huge this year, especially once we figure out where everybody lands. Where what the deal is with the 41, what the deal is. With all
that's a good segue. Keep going
drivers,
with what you're doing.
I'm hitting all the show notes right here. But for me, it is what's going on with the teams. What's going on with SHR? What's going on with Hendrick? Hendrick, you're thinking Jimmy Johnson, but obviously Chase Elliott you're talking about.
William Byron.
And
what
Alex
Bowman. Is he going to, are these guys going to be able to do the thing?
Yeah. So a team year for me is really what I'm following. So looking forward to that in 2019. We are well into the ditch territory of timeline here.
And I didn't even get a ditch from I'm going to cuss Orange Cone out.
Let's do this one. We've got one from Laura Henshaw. I love this one. Laura Henshaw at Fromage is Good. I like this question. What's the one New Year's resolution you should make but would probably never keep? Jeff, do you have a New Year's resolution you should make, but you probably wouldn't keep?
It probably, for those that have ever seen me, exercise. I could probably drop a few pounds. I could probably get to the gym. There's a great, that'd be a great thing for me to do, and I doubt that I'll ever do it.
I think
awesome.
all of ours are well, I shouldn't say what Sherwin's might be or not, but have to do with something similar to that.
No, it's fair for you to assume that's what I should be doing.
Fat ass, no. No. I was gonna say mine is no weekday drinking, but that's when we do the PTM podcast. So I should not.
Weekday drinking is so much fun.
There is that. I should not have. I should just save that for the weekends and be civilized on the weekdays. But there's PTM podcasts to do, and you gotta have a drink during that, because if you're not drinking while doing this, it's.
I'm not sure how we make it through it.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure how our guests do it.
I'm definitely not quitting drinking for the PETM podcast. I promise you that.
Sherwin, a resolution that you should have, but you're probably not going to keep.
Oh, that's like drinking, probably, I guess.
Like stop, like don't do it,
well,
or back off. Or
no. Here's
drinking before noon.
Drinking before noon. Here's the better one. Just like the inadvertent, like really foul language when you could easily just curb it.
Just curb it.
But you use the nasty language.
It's a good one.
I wish I hadn't said that.
I like that. I have. You know what? You'll probably think of me as like the angel on this show and the one who just keeps it clean and whatever. But I definitely have a lot in real life of those. Like I'm going to say this, and then at the end of saying that, I go, I probably should not have said that, but that was just to test the waters and see what people are up to. I like it. With that, let's start closing down this show. Jeff,
get Jeff out of here on an unreasonable amount of time.
Get Jeff out of here on a terrible note. Jeff, this has been an absolute blast. We've loved having you on. Can't thank you enough.
This will not be the last time.
Well,
I hope not.
I'll say this: we have talked to many drivers, many people in several, riders, many people in several different disciplines in the sport. And for me to talk to, I think we talked about radio stuff with you more than we've talked about driving with drivers or riding with riders or anything, because it's kind of what we're doing on this podcast, and it is. I hope that people haven't tuned out at this point completely, but even if they have, I've had so much fun talking that I don't care.
Yep.
But I love you, PTM Posse.
You know what I'd like to do, and I appreciate that. What I'd like to do is, okay, we got all that fun stuff out of the way. We haven't had a green flag yet, but it won't come, or it won't be too much longer, and we will. Let's get back and to that one question that we talked about, who's the best team in 5 years? Who's the best team in 3 years? What we ought to do is, after we get through California, Kansas, or whatever. Why don't we start talking about what the best team is after a half a dozen races or a dozen races, and really start breaking down, is Chase Elliott going to win a championship halfway through the season based on what we've seen? Ryan Blaney, like you guys were talking about. That's when it really starts to get fun. And I do want to correct something I said. I said, what is Kyle Larson, 24, 25? He is actually 26. But he is still younger than all three of my kids. So I look at him as part of that Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, Ty Dillon. But I have had a great time with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on and just kick things around. We went all over the place, and I love doing that and would be happy to do it again.
Hell yeah. Well, let's shoot for sometime in April.
We'll mark it on the calendar, man.
You bet.
Appreciate you being on. Y'all know what the deal is. And, Jeff, tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter and everything else. What you up to?
Jeff Striegel. It's as simple as that. On Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. So just search, like you guys said, Jeff, and then it's Striegele.
That's not the first time he's done that. Y'all.
No, definitely not.
Thank you for joining, as always, on the PTM
and
Podcast.
It's on our YouTube.
You can find us at PTM Podcast on the Twitter, and as always, I'm Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace at Tailgate Mayor.
And I'm Andrew Sherwin at Pregame Engineer on the Twitter, and at Andrew L. Sherwin on the Instagrams.
And this has been an absolute blast. What a way to kick off 2019. We've got so much going on and so much fun. It's going to be a blast, y'all. 2019, biggest year ever.
We're crushing it, dude.
Crushing it.
Nate Ryan next week.
We'll talk to y'all next week with Nate Ryan. Have a good one. There it is. We have finished the...
Are you still there, Jeff?
I am. I lost you guys all together there, so I apologize.
No, we forgot
good.
to tell you that we actually closed the audio before we closed the video, just to give the people that are willing to stay tuned on a TV style, just 1 or 2 more minutes, whatever it ends up being.
Still live on the YouTube right now. Jeff, that was... That's so much fun, and we try to keep it real, and you're keeping it real and all that stuff. But it really is a pleasure to talk to somebody who I wasn't lying. When we talk to drivers, we'll talk about driving for 15 minutes.
Right.
When we're talking to writers, we'll talk about what they're writing for 15 minutes, and then we have. I think you might be our first radio person that we've talked to.
Absolutely.
And talking radio, I think we did that for 40 minutes. So it's just so cool to me hearing a professional doing what 2 amateurs are
trying to do
on a weekly bet, but not even trying. I'm not trying to be.
I mean, we're doing it, but it's different. It's not the same thing.
And getting shown up on your own podcast on how to actually, do something here. I love that stuff. It's so much fun.
No, you guys rock it. It was a lot of fun, and I hope I gave you what you guys were looking for. And to your point, if we did go 40 minutes on radio, I hope we didn't, beat it to death or lose a bunch of people because they wanted to hear about their favorite driver. But, I hope, like I said, I hope I gave you guys what you're looking for.
I don't think we lost anybody that has been paying attention to what we're doing. We've been right around this 100 and, 70 to 90 minutes is kind of what we've been doing probably for the last 6 months. It's ended up like that, and it mostly has been received very well because the content has been something people would want to listen to, and it's because of people like you that are willing to say yes. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. It's just, NASCAR people are so cool. And I hope I get to meet you in person when I'm up at Michigan in June, if we don't get to meet you at another track that we're at in between.
Always. I think you guys both have my phone number now.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to use it when you're at the track. And I will tell you right now that I will say yes. Anytime you guys want to do this again, I am always happy to do it. The only reason I would, say no is if I legitimately had a conflict. But otherwise, guys, honestly, I'll do it anytime you want to come on. And even if you want to just do 5, 10, 15 minutes at the front or at the end of the show because you want to talk about something that happened and then get to a different guest, that's perfectly fine with me. So whatever you guys want to do, I'm always happy to do it.
My man, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Been a blast. We're going to close down the YouTube. Thank you, YouTube, everyone, for joining. This has been
Jeff, we really appreciate it. I don't know that we would have discovered an opportunity to get you on if it weren't for Brandon Crowd and Laugh Traffic. So, and we're good friends with him, very good friends with him.
Yeah.
So, thank you for supporting his